agenda. There's a forum. Let's start with the first item of action business, which are the minutes of the January 13th meeting. They were in the packet that was circulated to the boards. Any comments or questions on it? You're hearing none, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Moved and second. Any further questions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye, raise your hand. You did it. With that, the next item on the agenda is the pay requisition in Jones.
Yeah. So let's see, we have a payment to Anshin totaling $14,991.25. Payment to Avalon Document Services Holdings LLC totaling $646.67. Payment to Bond, Shonik and King, $4,940. Payment to Lawley Construction Solutions, $7,486.13. Payment to Philadelphia Insurance Company, $540.24. Payment to Savin Engineers, $258,323.39. And lastly, a payment to SWBR Architecture Engineering and Landscape Architecture PC, totaling $339,237.50. Total payments of $686,165.18. Any questions?
Seeing none, you'll entertain a motion to approve it. You have a second? Second. Any further comments or questions? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed? Carried. Okay. This is to really the business at hand here. First item on the agenda for action item is the award of the commissioning agent. Actually, you want to lead us through that? You might start after making sure everybody knows what it's.
Yes, thank you. About 2 months ago, we talked to the board about the need for a commissioning agent for the phase 3 program. The commissioning agent is responsible to check the design systems, mostly the MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing system, to make sure they are functioning as intended and as designed. This requires development of functional checklists, identifying those special systems, and those checklists will be worked in our favor. And there's also training of the staff once those special systems are being installed, so the end user can use it effectively in the most economical manner. So the PM team, in conjunction with Chairman Richards and Vice Chair Chief Scott, interviewed 2 firms after receiving review of their proposal. The ICO assisted the PM team. We interviewed the firms, and the interview committee is recommending an entry for the services based on the quality of their proposals, past performance, and also familiarity with the program. They were commissioning agents for both phases 1 and 2 of the RSMP. So, and their price was competitive, and combined when all the projects were awarded to one firm, there was some savings.
Yeah, one thing about this particular issue for this project, or for these projects, is that in almost all of the cases, we are replacing HVAC systems. And those systems are old, one to replace. And so it's a generational change, really. Because the way in which the new systems are controlled, the way in which they operate, even what they are going to be all different. Not just simply taking the old and putting another one in there. So it's pretty much the same. So it's very important, commissioning the agent, that responsibility for making sure this stuff works intended, and also checks on the provision of the training. We gotta make sure that the people who work in the building get adequate training to operate these systems. You can't assume in this case that it's gonna work, because it is much more sophisticated. User control and all of the things that go with it today. So it's uniquely important for our types of projects. Other questions or comments?
Just have we worked with them, so we have, Roman Anthony has a total compliance on their business utilization of 34%. They hit all the goals and get into it. One of them, in every category.
Okay, good, thank you. Other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the award as forth in fairly distributed. Make a motion. You have a motion, you need a second. Second. Moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing seeing none, all those in favor say aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, next, the architect award for Edison.
The board had authorized the release of an RFP for architectural and engineering services at Edison Tech. That RFP was advertised as required, and proposals were submitted by two local firms, one being CJS Architects in the city of Rochester. Based on the quality of CJS's proposal, their team's experience and qualifications, the entity committee, which was made up of the RJSCB leadership, the vice chair, and Chairman were there, facility departments, Tom Kidside Group, the ICO, they were all part of the interview. That committee is seeking authorization to negotiate an extra contract with CBS for design services at Edison Career and Technology.
Question, is this Edison's moving the structural issues and planning?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that was a different contract which you approved previously. So this is the general architect engineering services, including energy systems as well.
But you're right, Ron, there could be, depending on how the investigation goes, there could be some integration here. With respect to this more what there is. But for now, we're not going to step it up. The other half is it's been awarded, is already underway.
Well, we actually had some idea with Terry to see if we could marry the structural engineer with CJS to kind of take advantage of the coordination.
You don't want to be twice.
And to ensure schedule compliance, there's no light between the two efforts. Those discussions are moving along. We hope to bring something to the board. I would hope next month.
All this within this liability, all the way around good point.
If you remember, that's what SED preferred, folded together.
And the requirements.
And then we had worked with CJS, and CJS also is at the full 34% based on their $3,868,000 contract for the business utilization plan that they've submitted.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the award as set forth in the document. And move, seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor say aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Pass. Good. Good to see us getting underway here. Because these steps are all steps we have to take before we can get it. Next, we're going to have a presentation, I believe, for the last two items we're going to do here. Is that correct?
The SAM.
Oh, the SAM. I'm sorry, one more.
That's, well, similar to the architect, we released an RFP for CM services and received two proposals. The proposals were again reviewed by the Savin Gilbane program management team in conjunction with the board chairman, and the vice chair, the facility department, that would probably be as well. The quality of both proposals were excellent in terms of approach, qualifications, experience. However, Buffalo Construction Consultants proposal was much more competitive than its competitor this time around. For that reason, the entity committee is recommending BCC for CM services at Edison Bank. Going forward.
In BCC on their contract value of $2,585,000 is also at 34%. Goals for everyone on their business utilization.
Questions or comments about this? Good. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the award. And a motion. A second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor say aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. Now we do have a presentation. You're going to introduce this, Rick? Yes, Rick and. We have the microphone. Okay, good. Does that work for you? That one time received.
All right, Brian, send it this.
Back from the desk.
Oh, you working?
Good afternoon, I'm Rick Stoffel, like the School Modernization Program. We're Seven Engineers, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Ed Watts, the owner of Watts Architecture and Engineering of Buffalo. And Watts is the architect of record for the Marketing Training Junior School number 9. It's a kickoff project this year. And I'll let Ed introduce the architect, and we're going to talk to you about let's describe the phases here. We're lining up where this fits into the whole package design. Everybody knows where we are in the program here. Back in November, you might recall, we had a presentation on verification phase design. We went through essentially the scope of work as laid out by the strategic plan. This is the next step. We actually started as only to say putting some meat on the bone and trying to get some design actually started. So it's about, I guess, about 20% complete at this point. We've got specifications going together. We've met with the district a number of times on things. And as you'll see in a minute, Justina has started to pull together some real life activities that are going to happen in the school. So we're about 20%. The next stage would be 25% construction documentation. And then we'll go on from there to the any questions on that? On schematic design?
I might add, Rick, the schematic design constitutes what SED and the special legislation described as a preliminary submission required by the special legislation. So in that regard, this packet is that preliminary submission.
Okay, thank you.
And
Is this better?
Yeah, it doesn't work at all if you run.
Switch. Wait, so we're on.
So, yeah, then you have to like, you have close to her, whether that's supposed to have.
Okay, maybe if I keep it really close. Sure. Okay, got it. So our company, we're providing, we're the lead architect. We're the architect of record and leading our design team through this process. It's been a pleasure so far because we've been working with Rochester School District and everyone here on multiple projects through multiple phases. And Justina Zivkak is our project architect. And I'll have her lead our presentation through the schematic design.
Thank you, Rick. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present our schematic design package to you tonight. You can hit the next slide, Ken. Thanks. So tonight we're going to go over scope of work summary, talk through some project planning, look at the proposed site plan as it stands currently. I'm going to walk you through also the proposed building plans that we have associated with schematic design, talk about our risk assessment and some management items, look at what's coming next in our 25% construction document submission, and talk about our schedule of the project. So the first thing on the agenda here is project planning. So we're looking at some test fits for swing spaces. We're looking at school 39 and 106. We're going to divide the grades that are currently at school 9 between those two schools. So pre-K through grade 2 will go into school 39, and grades 3 through 6 will go into school 106. We're going to look at different options and the test fits to see how these programs can fit into the space, including the health center operations, ideally fitting them in, dividing them into fit between both schools so that each of the swing space schools will have access to that community-based health clinic. And then after we complete our test fits, we'll hand those off to our CSD facilities and they'll take the design from there. And they'll manage all of the construction of the upgrades. Another thing that we're working on in the planning phase is working with the adjacent rec center and trying to make sure that that is as operational as possible with modest shutdown periods being phased through construction. So to look at our proposed site plan, the most exciting space that we're working with right now is the courtyard. See if this will work. No, maybe not. Okay. Yeah, it does not show on the screen. So in the courtyard space right now, we have a kind of depressed area, which is not accessible to all the students. You know, the principal would really like them to be able to go out and have lunch in this area. We talked about potentially adding community gardens so that they can, the students can grow and these would all be accessible. So we're working on redesigning this space with a flat paved area. We're going to be replacing all the sidewalks in the area. And we're also looking at bringing some more life into the space by adding murals as well. In addition to the courtyard space, we're also going to be working on the parking lot, doing some milling and paving there, as well as some replacement of curbs and adding a new curb cut in as well. And then we're also going to be making sure that all of the cleanouts are maintained and fixed and all that. And in the schematic design submission, we also are including a generator exterior to the building in an enclosed space. So these are our proposed building plans. For the first floor space, we have these kind of different rehabilitation levels. So we have light design, moderate design, and heavy design in our rehabilitation. What you're going to find in the light spaces is really just a touch-up of paint, replacement of ceilings. It will look relatively exactly the same as it was before, just kind of a refresh space. What you're going to find in the moderate rehabilitation is things like casework being replaced, ceilings being replaced, flooring being replaced. In the pre-K and kindergarten rooms, they're going to be adding self-contained toilet rooms so that those will be able to be used inside the classroom. And then heavy renovation level is things like moving walls around, reconfiguring the space, taking a classroom space and turning it into office or vice versa. Just kind of a higher level of construction. So with all of, you can stay on the first floor for a little bit longer. Thanks. So we are proposing for all of the kindergarten and pre-K classrooms, adding those toilet rooms in. So you'll see those in the plan, kind of towards the bottom here. You can come out. We are also going to be adding all of those to the special education spaces. Right in the center, you'll see a kind of darker orange area. This is a more major reconfiguration of the space. We're going to be adding special ed spaces in there, special ed classroom, as well as a CSE suite. This is kind of more of a major reconfiguration. Yeah. There are, yeah. So one of those requirements is being self-contained, including the ADA accessible toilet room. There's also size requirements for how big these classrooms can be. So we're trying to accommodate all of those within our design.
One of the things that district is getting a handle on how many of these rooms we need. Changes all the time,
Mm-hmm.
It's come and go, population changes. And most people don't realize how significant that is, that it impacts the building. Right away, the requirement for the room is what is educated. It's different than the regular room.
Right.
So it's a constant fight here, and through that enough of it kind of stuff available for the district.
And the biggest thing too is the area for each student is increased on top of what's currently there, and the level of teaching staff has increased as well. So the spaces that we're right, the spaces that we're designing right now are called 12-1-1. They have 12 students, 1 teacher, and 1 aide in classrooms. Which is a little bit less, obviously. It's about half of what you'd find in a typical classroom, about 24. But the spaces are larger. And then, for the center of the first floor area, the multipurpose room was recently redone, so that's just going to be one of those light touch areas. The big thing that we are adding there is an ADA accessible stage lift, so that all of these students will have access to that stage. You can go to the next floor. In the second floor, you'll also see that a lot of the color for these plans is all on the school side. We're doing most of our renovation on the school side and only some light renovation on the rec center side. For the rec center, we're going to be refinishing the gym floors and painting that space, as well as doing the PE office between the 2 gyms. This is our second floor space. Again, it's more of those light rehabilitation spaces. We're not adding toilet rooms to the upper level grades or, above kindergarten, other than that special ed classroom. But what we are doing is we're creating a STEM or makerspace classroom. And then we also, talked to facilities and talked to the district and found that their computing services associated with the library, their computer labs are really not large enough for what they need right now. So that's what that big orange space at the bottom is going to be. It's really designed to be a computing classroom. Go to the next floor. So again, this is more of that light touch space. So we'll be renovating all of the classrooms. We'll be getting new ceilings, paint, new floor, but the classroom will look generally the same shape and size. Does anyone have any questions on any of the floors before I move on? So I talked before about some of those risks that we're working on mitigating. The first is really that shutdown time for the rec center. we're trying to get those times as short as possible. We're working with LaChase and our engineering team to make sure that any shutoffs that involve systems that are in both the rec center and the school side are going to be as minimal as possible so that they'll be able to use that space for as long as possible. And that'll involve a lot of coordination with them as well.
One of those schools that have, recreational, so when we're talking about closing this, we're denying access to the whole neighborhood. And there are a lot of programs in there, other reasons why we keep that going once it can. It's important for the neighborhood. The school, to some extent, we dealt with by moving them out and putting them in place. But as for the general use of the rec center, it's important that we keep in mind that a lot of people use it and cannot.
It's exactly right. They have two, gyms in this space. They have a boxing ring. There's a pool. A lot of the community uses that space. And in addition to what Tom already said, they're using this space for summer camp. So it really is, our same students using this in the summertime as well for programming. Yes. Yep.
We're not talking about closing it at all. It's coordinating the work we have to do in there. So when we're, renovating the gym, we'll work around the schedule that the rec center has and try to pick one of their, call it the least active periods to refinish the floors and paint the walls and replace the lighting. And as soon as we're done doing that, whether it's, a week or 2 weeks, that room will be open, but we're not shutting down the rest of the center.
Right.
So it's working our way around just to facilitate the work. So there are shutdowns we have to do, but it's not shutting the facility. That's the coordination we're doing once we really define kind of work. When we're replacing the boilers is another example. The effect on heating the pool. So that we coordinate how long the boilers will be down. Obviously, you do that in the summer, so we're not affecting the heat in the rec center, but I think they have their own source. But it might affect the pool. So we try to do that and shorten that duration and also do it at a time period where it would have least impact on the usage of the pool. If it has a large one, we start looking at, what the cost is for maybe a temporary facility to keep that going if it gets to be too extended. And that's something we'll discuss as the design progresses. But this is the school will be getting all new air handlers, but not the rec center. They're spread throughout the building. There'll be a mix. There's going to have chilled water system. Yeah. It's going to be used to chill beans, but there's also a one of the new units are cool.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, 20 years ago, we had a thing, whether it's for heating or cooling. Now, when you buy them, they're actually doing it.
It depends on what type of system you spec out, what lends itself to that type of a building and how it's built. And the engineers have actually custom tailored the different types of systems that are going into various portions of the building because of how this building was built.
Well, you just brought me when shutting down certain parts of the building is minimal. But if you have a rooftop unit,
we're in the rec center side of the complex. We're not replacing those. So.
Right. So there are a lot of systems that are divided between the rec center and the school side. There are some like the boiler plant that do serve both from an efficiency standpoint. So we're talking about minimizing those particular shutdowns, the ones that affect both the school side and the rec side to be at a minimum.
Elementary school kids, they're going to school.
Yeah. But that. Like Terry said,
that was on red. That was the battery.
Oh boy. Hello. Oh, might be
coming back.
Okay, I think I got it for at least a minute anyway. Oh, this is green. Yeah, there we go. So anyway, like Terry said, it might involve like shutting one gym down while keeping the other open. So we can kind of coordinate those things, but you can start, you'll start to see some of the answers. I'm sorry, this. You'll start to see some of the answers to these questions in our next submission, where we start to refine those items and really identify what's going to be happening and what's the most efficient use. Yeah. Any other questions on the first item? Yep.
Specific oriented way, say, in terms of the rest time. You've been coordinating with Jason, Martin.
Yep. As well as Kendra as well.
Okay. I'll let you know, like, contact my, so
Sure.
Jason is my architect, and then we start working. But I was like, my building services team, be involved in those kinds of.
That'd be great.
We actually manage the.
Yeah. Definitely.
We actually do have some names, Jason, get them involved now that we have a better idea of what we're doing. Kevin met with our construction manager last week, and we went through the whole risk assessment of what would impact the rec center. And talked through probably about 15 different areas. Yeah. So now is the time to really get them involved.
All right. So the next thing that, we're going to be making sure is we are doing abatement within the school space, and we are, attempting to get rid of as many of those hazardous materials as we possibly can in this project. And while we're doing that, while keeping the rec center site open, we're going to make sure that all of these areas are well contained. Fortunately enough for us, there's really one main pathway between the two spaces that's going to make it a lot easier for us to really seal the building down during these abatement procedures. The next item that, is really heavily on our minds is the lead in the water test. So we know that, some of these schools, in particular, this one in particular, has failed lead tests previously. So our engineers are currently looking at, lots of different options to mitigate that, from filters at the point of where the kids take the water out of the drinking fountain to filters on the main system. We're looking at running dedicated water loops. We're looking at replacing bubblers with bottle fillers. These options are all on the table, and our main priority is making sure that the schools are really testing below the maximum limits for lead in the water. And then our last item here is security. And, our plan moving forward is to have a security officer on site during the construction hours, off hours and weekends to, help with that. So, as I mentioned, our next step going forward is to move into 25% construction documents. And this is our next step on the SED required submission or deliverables. So what will happen in this phase is we're going to continue refining the design. We're going to continue refining our specifications. We're going to make product selections. We're going to start talking about like, oh, we know we're putting a drinking fountain in, but what drinking fountain? Or we know we're putting a new mechanical system in, but what mechanical system? And we're going to start engineering those and designing these different items. We're going to begin identifying interior finishes. We're going to be making preliminary product selections. We're going to be going through more detailed design of those MEP systems. Instead of just picking the type of system, we're going to look at how that fans out into the school and into all these special spaces. And we're, going to continue estimating at each of these SED submission phases. We are required to submit a detailed estimate. So that is, something we're working on in conjunction with the design documents. Right now, where we stand, our construction estimate has about 60% of that for MEP systems, and about 40% of that is our general construction budget. Our budget right now is about $33.7 million, and our last estimate for the program verification phase came in a little bit under budget, which is a great place for us to be right now, so that we can talk about, incorporating some of the items that were previously cut. If you remember from the last presentation, we're kind of still working with SED to determine if this project is a gut rehab, and we're treating it as if it's not. That is our anticipation moving forward. So we did have to cut a significant amount of scope from the project during program verification, but now we're at a point where we can start to add some of that stuff back in our 25% documents. So this is our schedule moving forward. Like Ed mentioned, we're anticipating submitting our 25% construction documents to our estimator on February 20th. We're going to submit those to SCB on March 6th, March 14th. We're anticipating having the estimate completed by March 6th. And then moving forward, our next submissions will be 50% construction documents, 75% construction documents, and then our 100% designed package. This project is anticipated to bid in January of 2026.
Can you go back to that?
Kim, I think there was a slide that might have been skipped in the beginning. Okay, there we go. Thank you. I know. So yeah, I started talking about the project before I told you what we were doing in the space. So we're going to do, these are kind of a high level of what we're anticipating doing in the space right now with that schematic design. That's without extra items added in, now that we're under budget a little bit. So we're going to be completely replacing the roof, doing the site work that I talked about earlier. All of our lighting is going to be upgraded in the project. A big part of this is new MEP systems and a new HVAC system. With that, we're going to be replacing all of the ceilings, and a lot of these ceilings, as you can see in the photo below, are these old coffered ceilings. They look very dated, and all the classrooms will be getting new ceilings. I talked about the outdoor courtyard space a bit. What we're also going to be doing is we're going to be cleaning the facade of this building and recaulking all the precast, so that'll make it look, really new from the outside, which will be really nice for the community. Security is something that's on our minds as well. We've heard from several teachers and the principal that since these windows open all the way up, there's quite a fall hazard, and they're concerned about their students in the classrooms. So for every window that's not an egress window, we intend on putting limiters on those so that they can only open a little bit, which lets fresh air and light in, but doesn't let children fall out. Another thing that we're adding is a two-way paging and the AI phone as well. Interior to the building, there's these masonry brick staircases. So there's a little bit of efflorescence, white staining on the interior of those. So we're going to clean all of that off. That space will all look new. As I mentioned, the classrooms will all be getting new paint, new flooring, new ceilings. We're adding those toilet rooms. We're going to be replacing all of the sinks and all of the bubblers. Those are items that are not testing quite well at the moment. All of our sinks did test positive for asbestos materials. So we're going to be removing all of those, replacing with new casework, that new STEM or makerspace classroom that I talked about, air conditioning for the school side, not the rec center side at this time. We're going to be doing new faculty restrooms. That's something that we heard from several of the teachers and talking to them that they were really looking for. The cafetorium space is really kind of one of those light touch spaces. So we're going to be painting the walls, but we are going to be replacing that folding partition so that it works and operates a little bit better than it does currently. We also heard that sound and lighting are kind of a priority for these performances that are happening in that space. So they're getting a really basic system. It's an elementary school. They're going to be able to turn the lights on and off and kind of use those for performances. And they'll have a basic sound system as well. That new lift for the stage is really going to provide access for students that cannot currently access it. We're going to be adding a new generator that's currently located outside in an enclosure. And then we're doing new boilers, new hot water heaters, and just removing, like I said, as much of those regulated building materials or hazardous materials as we possibly can within the project. Any questions? Yeah.
What's your question? They put in the material that you received a resolution to authorize us to continue work using this plan that was presented today. Okay, there are no further questions or comments. I'm going to add one thing to the resolution here, Captain. That is, you got 30 days to get that microphone. Not having another meeting when it doesn't work. We will get it fixed. Well, the people on the, on the video, they're gonna get left out. You did pretty well. Yeah. Good. So any questions or comments about the resolution, which is in the package circulated to you? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve it. Moved and second. Further comments or questions? Not, thank you very much. Good job, thanks. Yeah, thank you very much. Now a little work on the budget. As we said before, we have to revise together. Have anything in place. We've got more in place now, although the budget is talking about is the budget that needs to the facility board itself. The smallest part of the entire operation. But we're nonetheless need to pay attention to what is public comment. That's one of the things that Kim does. You're up, Kim.
Thank you, Chairman Richards. In July of this
You
year,
have a microphone?
I don't.
Yeah.
This I think.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
working.
Mhm. Back in July, the RJSCB approved the budget for the fiscal year. And those budget numbers were not including the procurements for architects and major vendors for the program because we did not have those numbers. We were not at a point where we could put estimates in. And now we have updated budgets for the budget, or excuse me, updated numbers for the budgets that include those vendors. So we have increased the budgets for Anshin, Bond, Shonik and King. We have the Drescher and Malecki audit and Lawley that have no numbers because those our vendors are being paid and have been paid previously. And Savin Engineers updated budget numbers, which will, as you'll see in the updated fund balance report, will no longer result in the red numbers that we had showing deficits because the budgets were not updated. So any questions on the budget?
The things that we can track correctly with, obviously, there's going to be a whole universe of work with respect to the actual project. That will come through the budget that haven't showed you here. Questions or comments? Ken? Hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised budget.
So moved.
Thank you. In fact, move to executive. Any comments, questions? All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Aye. Covered. Thank you very much. That takes care of the items of action that we have for this meeting. But we do have a series of reports, the first of which is the ICO.
Thank you. So as of January 28th of this year, we've received 100% of all the documents that we had requested, analyzed the time and the contracts through December of 2024. Here's an update as to where we currently are. So there's been 14,617 total work hours on the project, of which 1,750 of those hours were worked during the month of December. The breakdown of that 1,750 is minority hours worked 897, non-minority women 147, non-minority male 705. Comparison, our goals, overall hours worked, looking at it traditionally, minorities, both male and female, we have a goal of 23%. We're currently just over 57%. Women, non-minority only, with a goal of 7, we're currently at 1.72. When we compare that though to hours worked, and we look at it minority male only, goal of 23, still at 40.66. And then women, both minority and non-minority, we have a goal of 7, we're at 18.28. So far, through December, we've awarded $57,859,000 of contracts, of which the total amount to certified firms and firms that we're looking for is 45.33%. Our MBE is just under 35%. For WBE is just under 5. SBE is 4.56. For DBE, it's 0.76. For our total amount brings us to just over 45%. We also, although there's not a goal, we do track City of Rochester residents. There were 30 employees that worked on the project during the month of December. 10% of those, or 3, were City of Rochester residents. Any questions?
These numbers are pretty good, but way at the beginning of this, so you gotta be careful keeping too much credit for this. But once we get the construction going, we'll only have hundreds of people working. And then it's gonna be much more, we have to pay much closer attention to how we're doing with respect to these goals. But for now, it's a good start, and it'll be this in this condition.
To that point, phase 1, we had just under 2 million work hours, and in phase 2, we were about 1.6 million. So when you look at it, that we're currently at 14,000, to Tom's point, we're right at the beginning, and we, have 475 million in contracts, and we've awarded just under 50. So just to put it in perspective.
The bulk of that number, what is that? We talked about.
So we have 14,000 hours, work hours on the project so far, of which
The bulk of that.
probably the largest architects, engineer, Savin's team, the Anshin team, everybody that's working on it. And Ron, what we do is for the non-trades, prevailing rates, we get the race and gender information. And then when we start on the trade side, we also have all the wage information for that structure.
Yeah, it's the risk of consulting, it's a soft cost part of it. Currently,
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the fund balance report. Yep.
Thank you again, Chairman Richards. So the fund balance report for the month of February shows the last disbursement date of January 15th. That disbursement amount was $740,000. At the beginning of the program, the RJSCB receives funds and loans from the district. This $740,000 represents the last of those approved loans. And we are now going to be in the 39 million of approved, 34 million of approved funding. The phase 3 account balance at the beginning of the month was $309,175.23. After this month's pay requisition is subtracted from that, it leaves a negative balance of $376,989.95. There is a planned disbursement to be put into the account to alleviate that negative balance. The amount expended to date on the program is $7,181,167. The charts below are new charts, and you'll see these will be updated every month as needed. So the first chart represents the RJSCB discretionary funds. These are funds that were deposited from the Attorney General's office back in phase 2. And that money is for damages from events that happened in phase 1. The balance as of 2024 was $330,648. And that those funds have not been touched since then. As they get expended, we will see that chart updated. The RJSCB only expenses represents the audit and the insurance for the RJSCB. So the budget for that for this fiscal year was $21,000. The actual expenses were $17,986. This chart will not update because those funds have already been paid. The next chart is the RSMP admin expenses. These represent vendors that are contracted directly with the RJSCB. So that would be Savin Engineers, Von Schoenig and King, and Anshin. So to date, that expenditure is $4,286,317 against a budget of $35,657,842. That is for the total program. The next chart is the RSMP construction costs. This number will be updated as well every month, and the current expenditures for that are $2,876,864 against a budget of $439,342 or $342,158. So what you'll find is when you add the RJSCB only expenses, the RSMP admin expenses, and the RSMP construction costs, it equals the $475 million for the program. So these charts essentially break out the actual expenditures to date for that work. For the RSMP construction costs, when the hard construction begins, this report will be updated to show two charts that shows the soft costs against the hard construction costs. I know that was a lot, so if anyone has any questions.
What we're doing here is trying to figure out a way to present this that is meaningful to you, because there are an awful lot of numbers flying around here, and we need to have some mechanism of having some. We need to watch the numbers, but we need some perspective about how it fits into the total problem. So it's still a little early to do that. We haven't been actually going on with the construction and so forth, but it's not time to get ready to do it. And we would very much appreciate your input. There's nothing that has to be done with it today, but as you look at this, if it's helpful to you, that's good. If it's not, or we have another idea, we take that as well. That's what we're trying to do here. Trying to give you some sense of it, but it's too early to do that in reality. The other thing is that you mentioned that in respect to the expenses currently we show a deficit. I want you to think about some of the checks that the way it works here. I think we discussed this before. The actual expenditure of money, mailing the checks and making the payments is done with the business. Eventually, all of this goes on the report. So they keep track of the fact that the account has money and there doesn't have money when we keep track of that. So we don't need to be alarmed over that. But we show the deficit and we haven't paid anybody, we're paid anybody when they check that. Isn't that right, Mike? But it's a little odd system that you would expect, but it's a check because they also control the money that's put into the account. So it's actually safer right now. Okay, anything else? Not just for information, as I said before, and you appreciate any ideas you have. Happen. Other than getting a new microphone, what do you do?
You get some noise. As far as the program management report, you could go to the budget versus cost summary. This report you've seen before. There are no hard costs spending to date, as the gentleman mentioned. As of last month, 6.41% of the total stock budget spent for $7,181,167 paid to date. That's the same amount that Kim mentioned earlier. This was reconciled with her to make sure we have the same numbers. Also, I believe there was a reconciliation district to make sure this number was accurate. Also, Siobhan is developing your cost codes for on project site, which is the management software and also monitoring the budget. And that number also checked on her system project site. With the current progress, the overall phase 3 program itself, hard and soft costs included, we are 1.51% since we started about 20 months ago. The next item is the State Department submission updates. Nothing new to report regarding the state controller's approval of the revised financial plan that was submitted last November. That was resubmitted last November. The schematic design documents were submitted to SCB last month for Martin Luther King Junior School number 9, as Rick mentioned, with the Watts team, along with the program verification report for Wilson and IBS school at Franklin. The schematic design submission will be made for Wilson later this month, and IBM at the end of March, according to pretty much report. SCB will not accept a meeting to review their standard preliminary submission until the district ISR forms are reviewed and signed off by the SCB regional associate. Mr. Scott has been working on this for several weeks now. Just the last signature. Yeah. Once we have that, we'll start knocking on the SCB door again to make sure we have a meeting to go through the requirements of the preliminary design to submit them to the requirement. Design status for phases 3A and 3B. School number 9, we had a presentation earlier on schematic. The design will continue. As Rick mentioned, the 32 here, there's a 25% submission that will be made. February 20th, still a good date. Okay. The CM legislation is pricing the current that the progress set in that we all talked about earlier today. Wilson, the schematic design estimating and reconciliation is due in 2 days. Well, that's still the case. It's not it. It's still the case. The case. So the SCD submission is also set for February 27th. We're still maintaining that date. That's what we mentioned a month ago. And we're on track. The schematic design drawings are currently being reviewed by the school district's facilities department following completion of our own internal review here with the enrolling and carrying themselves.
And they've actually given us partial comments.
Okay, so we got partial comments and we'll stay on that. If there remaining comments. As far as the green space test fit, I think there was a revision. Awaiting the school district's facility department review, and it's still there being reviewed.
Yeah, it was sent last Wednesday.
Right. The high school use plans are being transposed to the SCD preliminary submission for their request. The instructional space review of ISR for Wilson is drafted. I believe that's awaiting signatures as well by the district and the regional associate from SCD. And this is all being coordinated with Dr. Hawkins.
The SUV forms for Wilson, which include the for Wilson and Padilla. We're trying to coordinate with Kristen and or Perry.
Carry order.
Well, not just Perry.
Okay.
Kristen and there's another her assistant. To verify the information that's on those forms so that we can finalize them for signature. So, I know, we reach out, haven't made contact to try to verify them. Yeah, I'll help you with the IS.
That's the
Instructional space review form.
for the special ed.
This is mostly all special ed. So it's where the number of rooms, the purpose for special ed, and the instructional. When Justine was talking about the 12 to 1, 12 students to 1, there's also an 8 to 1, it's 6 to 1. It identifies all of the different size special ed, whether they're self-contained, and then what the purpose of those rooms are if there's a specialized purpose. And eventually it needs to get approved, right? Yes, and it'll actually, we'll go through this again in the final 100%, but it's the requirement of their preliminary submission to do it now. Good idea to do it now, just in order to make sure, we're on the same, on the right track with SEB, so that we don't spend time designing something that at 100%, they'll make us revise. So, we have to submit it now, and then at 100%, when we get our building permit, they'll be reviewing that again.
There's greater emphasis at SED on the special ed because SED aids special ed at a much higher rate than general instruction. Special ed students need resource materials, they may need special facilities, they may need special, whatever their individual employment program requires. So that's why it gets a much closer scrutiny and has to be reviewed by the regional associate, which is technically independent of the state education department.
Another question? So for Padilla at Franklin, the schematic design work is ongoing with targeted completion by March 6th. 3 weeks cost estimated and reconciliation will follow. Program verification debrief and then update of confirmation of assumptions are ongoing with the school district administrators. That's an ongoing effort. A lot of meetings are occurring. We'll stay on that. Madela on track for the month.
Yeah, and we should say that that's actually early according to our schedule. Our schedule doesn't review to the 20th, but they committed to getting it done early.
So the sooner we can get things done, the better for all of us. For delay signatures and other. Edison Tech, we held a kickoff meeting with SDH, structural engineer, Ron, you mentioned earlier for the Waffle Slab evaluation work. I think Brian, you told me today they were doing destructive and non-destructive. Starting today. That's on track. They're on track. We also scheduled, now that we have a CM and an architect for Edison Tech, we will have a preliminary kickoff meeting with them tomorrow. To get everybody on the same page, understand the expectations, and kind of build a team. So we still have that marriage you and Terry mentioned of SPH with CJS that we need to formalize and bring the recommendation back to the board in terms of contract. Okay. So we'll do that.
On that point, again, just to be clear with the board, SPH was retained early for the structural assessment because of the priority the district had placed on that. SPH is also the structural engineer for the architect of record. We want to marry the two together, as I mentioned earlier, so that there's no light between any of that work or schedules or instructions or anything else. It's just too critical. We want to keep it, as I said, totally coordinated.
So that's actually the update for the design status. The next item is procurement of professional services. We had our recommendation letters to the board, discussed them earlier. Yes, and East Campus architects and CMR in preparation. We don't have an update yet, Rick, but we're working on them.
We're not due or scheduled to release those until November. In order to meet our schedule, we could release them earlier if, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I think we should, while we're waiting for stuff to get approved. The more we can do now, better. Get these things out of the way.
And the only caution on that is the coordination of all the submissions to SCB and the commitment we made not having more than one submission into them at a time.
We'll deal with that.
Yeah.
So we wanna get it done in a minute. Strange space, we don't know if Mr. Scott, you are prepared to have a comment on strange space, but I think the Wilson Strange Space at Jefferson is ready for occupancy, I believe, by September 25. We also sent a communication plan out. So,
Yeah, I just need to offer the school in 9. There's a microphone.
it's fine, yeah, it's good here.
Yeah, also for school 9, we also are getting in ready for 239, 160, same timeline with this. The new code of program. Hopefully by the end of the year. So, 25. There's a couple items we just have to have some discussion around our smart board and that measure. But we do have a schedule to get
The test fit plan started for the temporary location of Wilson doing construction. And all strange space test fit plan will be sent to facility department of the district for review. That's ongoing. That's for strange space. The PLA, I made several calls to the insurance company. I spoke with Sheila today. I had a witness, Kimberly was in my office when I got that call. We got no movement, so I still have to work a little harder on Sealer before I can come back to you with an update on the PLA. But we still need a decision around April 30th in order to include language in the front specs being developed by the team. For the contract reviews. So again, with the PLA, there's an opportunity to do single prime or which prime. So once we know, the board will have an appetite for a PLA and moving forward, it makes sense. Then we can put language in the specs to protect the board and protect the stakeholder and give the contract to some options. Master schedule, Terry, if you could go high level update.
Yeah, so we've done an update. What's on the board or on the wall is the updated schedule. We've mitigated the impact of SCD not picking up and reviewing the schematic package for Martin Luther King Jr. School 9. By basically moving into the next phase of design, even though they haven't looked at the schematic phase. So the architects have, continued their design into the next phase. Even though theoretically by schedule, we were supposed to have their approval by the end of January. If they don't give us approval by the end of March, or excuse me, the end of February, then there potentially would be an impact because the following package is supposed to go in by March 14th. So if they don't start looking at it by the end of February and take 2 weeks to approve it, we're going to be prevented from submitting the next package. So that's something that we've got to watch and we can continue to work with that.
I think I have pointed to be clear what we think the driving factor for all stakeholders is compliance with the 95% MCA cap. We believe the estimates show that we are there. So in that regard, moving ahead with the 25%, as Terry said, stand to have the reviews backed up on each other, but we have the estimates at each stage and we will not submit it. A project if it's not at the 95%.
Any questions for Terry on the schedule or? Okay. So the last item for my PM report, maybe I in trouble with Mike Mahaney and Derek Blair, but it's the opportunity to refund the callable steel bonds that I'll be talking to do. We discussed with the board the opportunity to extract savings from those bonds that are due at least maybe 2025, maybe 2025 or later. I discussed this with the chairman also, and I believe the school district is taking the lead on the refunding opportunity. So I don't want to bring it up again, but I know you're working on drafting legislation for that. Yeah. So that's where we are. That is the chair. Concludes your report.
Thank you. Questions for Pepin? Questions about anything? That, might be on somebody.
Yes, I have a question. Drake Thomas, SBA. For this next phase, with the new Monroe County certified MWBEs, how will they be able to participate on this phase of the project?
Yep. We'd be happy to work with them to get their state certification. We can look at modifying the plan. Currently, the plan is for state certified, but if there is a list of new certified by the county, happy to work with them on getting their state, so that they would be aware of the opportunities that this program is going to have available to it in the future.
Okay, that's one option. But wouldn't it be also a great way to, get these small businesses, small contractors involved on a small level, like just as an SBE, a small business enterprise, and they could work towards their state MWBE certification because they're already certified through the county.
Yes, so we have a goal for the SBE, and they would qualify for that, they meet those qualifications.
To make sure that your ideas get incorporated in this big study. The guy who was answering your question is Brian Sanders, who's the independent compliance officer for the project. He's the guy that's in charge of the program. And he did a lot of important direct communication with you about this. Make sure we're not missing something here. That could work. If you call the office here, we'll put you directly in contact with Brian.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Anything else? Being you're hearing none. Welcome you to next month's meeting when the microphone will be working. Or Pepin will be absent. Okay, thank you. We'll stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Engineers here.